Hi friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Gina and I make videos here about disability, chronic illness, lifestyle stuff, fashion stuff, basically whatever kind of comes to my mind at the time. If you enjoy this video, I hope you'll stick around and hit the subscribe button below. I apologise for the potentially changing light in this video, but it is December in the UK right now and the light is very lacking and it moves a lot, but I am trying my best. I did try to do like a seasonal look with my outfit this time, but then I realised I've kind of offset that with all the pink in the background, but the roses look nice, so enjoy the roses. So today I want to talk about why it's okay to celebrate getting a diagnosis. You heard me right. You are perfectly within your rights to celebrate getting a certain diagnosis and to share that celebration with the world. But wait, why would you ever want to celebrate getting a diagnosis? Isn't a diagnosis something to feel sad and disappointed about? Don't we expect people to respond to our diagnosis news with an, "I'm sorry, that must be so awful for you"? Well, no, at least not everyone. Of course, if you do feel devastated by a diagnosis, that's totally okay too. And I'm not here today to try and convince people to respond differently to your own personal news, but to offer those who feel differently a hearty congratulations and explain why it might be inappropriate to respond to someone's news of a diagnosis with sadness or pity. First, let me make an important distinction. I am saying that certain people might want to celebrate getting a diagnosis, not that they have a certain condition. That's an important clarification to make. When someone shares the news of their diagnosis, it's possible that they might have suspected they have a certain condition for quite some time. And it's also possible that they might have been going through what is an exhausting and arduous diagnosis process for what feels like a lifetime. For those with rarer conditions like myself, such as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the current diagnosis average time is, drumroll please, 10 to 12 years. Yes, years. As you can imagine, this can be an incredibly stressful and invalidating process. And that's if you're lucky and you don't experience the common occurrence of medical gaslighting and being passed from department to department because we just can't help you. This might seem shocking if you've never experienced it yourself, but for example, I was recently referred to 2 different hospitals for the same issue. Long story. But when I finally got to speak to someone at one of the hospitals, they told me to just stick to the other one because they probably wouldn't know what to do with me there. And it's not just about how long it takes to get diagnosed. The diagnostic process can be difficult physically and mentally. In either scenario, you're often put through multiple tests that can be tough on the mind and the body. Like only being able to eat scrambled eggs for like 24 hours before a diagnostic test and then waking up super early in the morning to drink this like gallon of really horrible sugary drink and then blow into 1,000 plastic bags for what feels like a lifetime, while not being able to eat or drink anything else. No? Just me? But seriously, the diagnostic process can affect people's quality of life and negatively impact their ability to work and live as they normally would. For those with suspected mental conditions, it can be very triggering, and for those with physical conditions, physically painful. And of course, there's definitely some overlap there. Physical diagnostics can cause trauma, medical trauma, and that is nothing to joke about. I hope that by now the concept of potentially celebrating your diagnosis is a little bit less mystifying to those who may have been confused by it earlier on in the video. For many, finally being diagnosed can be that elusive piece of the puzzle that they have been searching for years. While no one welcomes having any condition, getting a diagnosis can be incredibly validating for people who have been suffering for a long time and haven't known why. And there's more to celebrate about a diagnosis. It isn't just about the diagnosis itself, but the fact that it opens the door to a wide variety of treatment and management options, as well as community support that can provide vital help and solace for chronically ill and disabled people. Being diagnosed with a certain condition also allows you and family members to possibly support charities that help to look after people with those conditions, help to give them support, and potentially help to raise money to increase funding for research. Diagnosis also opens the door for potential government help such as benefits, which are very difficult to get without one, and we'll talk about that maybe another day. I'm sure that by now you get it. So what is the best way to respond when someone tells you they've received a diagnosis? Firstly, try not to assume. If you know them personally, you'll likely have some idea of what their diagnosis process has been like. Slow and arduous, or quick and surprising. A good rule of thumb is to ask them how they feel about their diagnosis, so that you can respond in an appropriate way. For example, "That's big news. How do you feel about it?" If they say, "Oh, so relieved, I finally know what's going on with me," it might be appropriate for you to say, "I'm so glad you've got that information now. I'm sure it will be able to help you in future." Obviously, if they say, "I feel devastated," it might be more appropriate to console them. Either response from a person receiving their diagnosis is valid, but I wanted to make this video to point out that sometimes when you have a chronic illness, getting a diagnosis actually can be one of the best things that can happen to you. After all, it isn't the diagnosis that gave someone their condition. They had it before and they'll have it post-diagnosis. A diagnosis only stands to help that person gain more information and potential support to help them through their condition. One thing to avoid is telling the person how you think they should react to their diagnosis, or imposing your own personal feelings about their diagnosis upon them. No one has a right to tell someone who's just received such news that they should be either miserable or elated. Everyone gets to feel and respond to this kind of thing in their own way, and as the secondary person in the situation, you have no right to impose how you feel this person should be responding. Unfortunately, I have seen such posts online with people insinuating that someone is celebrating or glamorizing their condition when all they were really doing is celebrating the knowledge and power that comes from getting a diagnosis. So please, if you have a loved one or see someone online that is sharing and celebrating their diagnosis, offer them some positive affirmation. Maybe you could make them one of those diagnosis celebration cakes, or just send them a message and tell them that you're happy for them to have got this knowledge and be able to access this new support. As I hope I've conveyed in this video, everyone's journey to and response to a diagnosis is their own, and it's individual and unique. That's how it should be. But for someone who generally feels that each diagnosis is a win, is more knowledge and support, no matter how many diagnoses seem to be rolling in, I really wanted to make this video. It is okay to celebrate getting a diagnosis, and it's also okay to feel upset about a diagnosis. It's also okay to feel both of these things simultaneously. All this being said, getting a diagnosis can be inaccessible to some, not to mention bloody exhausting. And no one needs a formal diagnosis to validate or prove their experiences. Your experiences are valid whether you are diagnosed or not. And that is a video for another day. The road to diagnosis is often physically and mentally exhausting and can be fraught with difficulties. But every person deserves the right to be treated with respect, and that includes respect for them to determine what is best for them in regards to their own medical experiences. If I had to boil this message down to something simple, it would be observe, listen, like really properly listen to the person, and respond in a way that coincides with how they're feeling. And if they don't know how they're feeling or they're confused right now, let them know that you're there for them. Be there for the person receiving the diagnosis. Now, of course, if it's someone close to you that's receiving this diagnosis, it's likely to bring up a lot of different conflicting feelings for you too. And it's important for you to make time to express them and deal with them in your own way. But perhaps sharing them with the person close to you who's already going through so much isn't necessarily what's best unless they ask you to. So be there for them no matter what their journey looks like. More than anything, people with chronic illnesses and disabilities who have just been diagnosed just need support. Someone to listen, check in on them, let them know that they care. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. This is a topic that's very close to my heart, and I've seen a lot of discourse about it online, so I just wanted to throw my 10 cents into the ring and let you know what I personally think about this topic. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to talk about, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Love and spoons.